Welcome, everyone. This is chapter 24, Black Women Moving Towards the 21st Century, May 1975. The ISIS Papers by Dr.Frances Cress Welsing. So before we jump into it, can we just get a roundabout on people's how you felt about reading it, kind of your summarization of it, if you will. I'll go by starting first. How I felt while reading this, I felt that this was really important, urgent information because I feel like there's such just there has been this attack at the black male black female relationship, and there has been the giving of gifts as a reward for being willing to participate as a agent of white supremacy, and I mean that by saying how some people fall victim to actively attacking their black male counterpart in order to receive trinkets from the white supremacist behemoth. Behemoth. So what else did I think about this chapter? No, not think, but how would I summarize it? Historically, there has been a effort where, because the chapter is about black women, and the focus I'm going to bring right now, my summarization is the collusion, going as far back with Cleopatra and engaging in relationships with the white male in an effort to protect oneself and to protect one's culture has never really worked. So we need to get back to the drawing board on how we counter the enemy, counter white supremacy, counter those who are working towards our destruction. And it was a very great chapter. I really enjoyed it. Whoever wants to jump in.
Well said. Well said. A god named Trey.
Thank you.
I the chapter was really important, and I thought it was very constructive because it gives us the reality that we're in crisis mode. Like the state of the so-called black race is in crisis. They're experiencing a genocide, and the members of the black race have been so divided and conquered that they go around name calling each other, hating each other, and destroying each other. So it's a much needed example and message to the black woman that and I think it should be applied to the black male too, that they are the first teachers of the children, and they need to go back, not go back, but remember to teach their children that it need to be warriors fighting the system and not just slaves who are concerned about gaining material trinkets from the white supremacy system. Well, that's my summary.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, to summarize this chapter for me, chapter 24 of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, it's almost as if it's not the most, I don't believe it's the chapter that has the most information that will teach you about white supremacy, but I believe this is the chapter that almost everybody should read. Everybody, every black woman, every black man, which by and large, everybody should read the whole book and take in all of this information. But this chapter, I believe,
Black
is
male.
I believe it's very easy to understand as well, the way that she lays out the questions, she lays out several circumstances or incidents where through statements of African proverbs that really do that just really do tell to our experiences. The fact that she's talking about she wrote this back in 1975 when all of these issues are prevalent and can still be spoken to today for the things that we're experiencing, to showcase she was a true scientist. Like, if we didn't understand science, you'd say that she was a magician or she prophesied this like Nostradamus, but it's very much our history as well as what she said would become of us is very much there. And I really appreciate this chapter, especially the way that it talks about the importance of Black women not competing, not gossiping about one another, and the focus on the, because as a Black woman and experiencing Black women all throughout my life and seeing them being the primary breadwinners, the authority in the house, the decision makers, that for me in my world growing up outside of white supremacy, that is power and authority. So to understand and see these sets of guidelines and rules, I just believe every Black woman should read this, because it's as important as the code book. The things that she says that we need to do as Black women in order to not baby the men that we gossip about. Because it just shows how much we're in control. It just shows the power that we have and how we tarnish that power through false senses of power that white supremacy gives us by the very purposeful positioning that they put us as Black women in the first place. Yeah, so I look forward to, I'll let Ben summarize, and I look forward to, I feel like we should read the opening. I think it's quite important, especially with the way she describes the crisis. It would be good if we could just read that amongst ourselves after, but I'll let Ben go ahead.
Yeah, I'll share screen and we could take turns reading.
That was profound, Mary. I didn't think I was read through that, and that's what I love is that I read this stuff and then I hear your input and all of your input, and it just adds more to what I got from it. Yeah, when you educate women, educate a nation. The right there. And when you hand rock the cradle, rules the nation. And she really crystallized the attack on the Black male, and why it was important to attack the Black man in particular. What I wanted to add to that was that, during the initial invasion of Africa in the 1400s, when Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand declared war on the Moors and they invaded Africa, they attacked the queens because the queens were actually ruled. The queens sat on the throne and made the final decision. They were matriarchal societies that built civilization. So they had to attack the matriarch as well, and then attack the soldiers that protected the matriarch. So in this country, yes, obviously, once you have the patriarch set up, you go after the man. As aggressively pursued the woman, equally. And I also just without belaboring this, because we're gonna go over all of this, is that in this day and age, it's really rare that you hear criticism of Black women. People are really afraid to hold them responsible for what's happening with their sons and how they're rearing their sons. And we know that it's a result of this white supremacy and the self-hate that's been taught through slavery, through colonization. But I'm just really grateful. I'm really appreciative that she addresses, the confusion that Black women have. How she pointed out how because they were giving gifts and favors and more, stuff during slavery, they want us, they might try to convince us to calm down and not be as militant and be as aggressive towards the enemy. If you don't want to make waves, we might not get what we need from the white man if you make too much noise. Thus, you know, the plan for, and this is what I thought about when I was reading this, and I'll close with this. The plan of Malcolm X to join the Organization of African Unity died because of that. And that's my mission. That's my ultimate goal, is to reignite our membership as Black Americans to the Organization of African Unity. That's the biggest fear of the white man. So, okay, I'll close with that, and we'll talk.
Thank you so much, Ben. That was amazing. I feel like whenever like you spread knowledge, you always inspire a lot of ideas. And I'm thinking, see, I haven't heard of this. I haven't heard of a king actually declaring war on the Moors. So now I got to go research King. You said Ferdinand or something.
It was King Ferdinand of Portugal and Queen Isabella of Spain.
Yeah, and
They teamed up.
What year? Do you know the century it happened? Like
1491.
So, like, to me, it's like, is that the beginning? I don't believe that it is, but I'm really intrigued on finding the beginning of the like transatlantic race war that's being waged against Black people.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
is that
1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? The war was waged in 1491 and 1492, Columbus came out. That was the start of the that's when the conquistadors and came out over here and ravaged the indigenous people.
Mm.
But you hear stuff and read stuff. You do your research. One other thing I wanted to check in with just right quick, I forgot to say that how it warms my heart, it brings tears to my eyes to see you two brothers encouraging each other and supporting each other and praising each other, because I know a little bit about your history. So it just, oh man, whoo. Because I have a brother, that I'm close with, that we funk all the time. He's a Catholic, and I can't even get through to him. So this is very
dangerous.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thanks so much, Ben. That was really great to hear. So Mary.
And sorry, Ben, could you please put the name of those two historical figures in the chat, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
What am I looking for? Oh yeah. So just get my my document ready for the screen share so we can read the opening. Mary, did you want to read the first few paragraphs? How much did you want to read? You're muted.
Yes, I'd like to read the first two paragraphs of page 283, and then from 284, we could just take turns until the end of that page. Oh, no, until the end of that paragraph on 284.
All right. All right. Let me get to the
Okay. Let me know.
Honestly, do people have their books ready? Because if so, we can just read up.
That's true, but I think my mom would like to read too.
All right, I thought so as well. Let's see.
There's some real disturbing bass bumping background noise happening. Is that my computer? Does everybody else hear that?
I do hear it too. I think, Mom, I actually think it's coming from you. Are you using your mobile? Do you have headphones that you could connect?
I muted her by accident. Unmute yourself. I muted you by accident.
Yeah, so I would say when it's time to talk, you can unmute it, but in the times of silence, you should mute it because we can hear like an extra sound. When it's time to read, then you can unmute it and it'll be fine because we'll be hearing you.
All right. I'll just start the reading. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Today, the world is going through a period of great turmoil and change. Individually, we are aware of this turmoil because social and environmental chaos brings an attendant increase in the stress we feel in our daily lives as women in all capacities. Wives, mothers, and individual members of a total collective that for 400 years have been oppressed. Yes, this is a difficult period for all of us human beings, and it would not be an exaggeration to say we are in a time not only of turmoil, but of crisis.
Thank you.
Can I go? Go ahead, Mary. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you. During periods of crisis and stress, the easiest thing to do as an expression of our pain, despair, and hopelessness is to moan, groan, cry, or attempt to escape through alcohol or other drugs, fantasy, laughter, or just fun and games. However, another possible behavioral response, which channels the body energy upward and onward as opposed to downward, is the use of the crisis as a stimulus for analysis, challenge, responsibility, growth, and great creativity. The word crisis evolves from the Greek word crisis, which means decision. A period of crisis is a time for decision, an unstable or crucial time to state of affairs when the decisions that are made and acted upon become all important for determining future events. Both men and women throughout the world have key roles to play in the resolution of this crisis, but my singular emphasis here is on the role of Black women.
Before specifically defining our present period of crisis and our response to it, we must contemplate our identity, the self-image that we carry in our brain computers. For all that we can imagine doing, all that we will do or fail to do is a result of that picture of self derived from our total experiences from birth onward. That picture becomes the basis for all our behavior patterns. Unfortunately, a major part of these self and group images for all too many of us Blacks consists of a brief and inaccurate history. Accordingly, this history began 400 years ago when we were brought to North America in the holds of slave ships by the very advanced European whites. It continues with the advancement that we have made since our emancipation in 1863 and becoming full-fledged Americans. And finally, this history insists that many of us now are just like the whites. There is a proverb that states the tree grows strong and tall only to the extent that its roots are deep and firmly planted in the soil. If Black people are at all disappointed in our present level of achievement, it may be because our roots are not planted deeply enough in the past, resting upon such a shallow, inadequate, and faulty data input of only 400 years of history.
The facts of our true identity are that we as Black people are persons whose dominant genetic and historic roots extend to Africa, the land of the Blacks. Men and women of science today, with few exceptions, are satisfied that Africa was the birthplace of humankind and that for many hundreds of centuries thereafter, Africans, meaning Black people, were in the forefront of all human progress. As John Hendrik Clark states, it can be said with a strong degree of certainty that Africa has had three golden ages. The first two reached their climax and were in decline before Europe as a functioning entity in human society was born. Factually speaking, this means that Black women and Black men are the parents of the entire family of people, Black, brown, yellow, and white varieties. Black people can and have produced all of the colors of mankind, including white. White skin is simply the product of a recessive genetic mutation to skin albinism. Whites cannot be the parents of humankind because whites can only produce white, but Blacks can produce a range of colors from as black as the proverbial ace of spades to as white as the proverbial driven snow. Not only are Blacks the genetic parents of all people in the world, but Blacks produced the first scientists, architects, musicians, mathematicians, astronomers, astrologers, philosophers, statesmen, priests, prophets, and generals. Indeed, Africa produced some of the first fighting women generals.
Asata, do you want to read this paragraph right here, the short one?
I
Sorry?
We can't hear you.
I haven't replaced my glasses yet.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah, so
okay.
that's
It's okay. Swag, can you?
I can go.
Yeah, Swag, go.
Yeah, I am reminded of some ancient and important wisdom of Africa as seen in the following two proverbs. When you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And two, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the nation and its destiny. With this wisdom of our Black ancestors in mind, let us examine the current world crisis and the role of Black women in its resolution. What is the nature of this crisis? Critical in the history of white supremacy was the decision not to control Black or other women of color, but to control men of color. Men are the initiators of the act of reproduction. Ultimately, women are dependent upon their men for protection because of the greater physical strength compared to women. If one simply controls the man of a people, the women are controlled also. Thus, the white collector went about the business of systematically developing a plan and power mechanism worldwide to bring all of the world's men of color under their ultimate control. Once this was established, the men of color were informed overtly as well as subtly that if they were ever to seek to alter the power relationship of white over non-white, they would have to fight and many would die. Thousands upon thousands of Black men in the US were lynched and castrated to drive home the message that white men intended to control the boss in this world, both on and off the court. White males understood that they needed white women as well as Black women to help them achieve and maintain this power relationship. White women have always known what they stood to gain, their own survival as whites. Black women have been confused and less clear in fully understanding how they have been led to cooperate in this deadly power game of white supremacy. Further, Black women do not understand fully that they have nothing to gain and everything to lose if this deadly game continues.
Okay, thanks everyone for reading.
So I have a question with that being read that came to mind when I was reading it again earlier. And the question is because black people have failed to understand history, how are they repeating it in 2020? That's the question.
That's a very interesting question. First of all, for me, reading all of that information, the reason why I thought it was important for us to like just get like just to have a like a quick overview for everybody else is one, because I believe everybody needs to read this. Two, because it isn't that it ties in with your question. It is an important. How do we keep getting back to this same scenario of some form of like oppression or slavery when I'm sure like throughout time we've come to realize that Europeans are not our friends or white people are not our friends, especially after slavery, but yet we still manage to be under their care, governmentally speaking, authoritatively speaking, like through the police. We're still in their care. We're still allowing ourselves to be called minors, and we're ticking those boxes in the with in those forms and applying for their jobs to only be given like the worst end of the stick that they can possibly give, and even after like hard work the respect is like very minimal, but and you'd see in like your white counterparts the same level of work experience, they get promoted, or there's a certain level of appreciation that you would see that they would have that makes them feel like their job is fruitful, where it seems to be almost like a dead end at some points. If you're told with positive behavior and keep being good and keep working hard, you get there, but you can feel the difference. And knowing that Dr. Frances Cress Welsing making a statement like we had we had so much history and like a civilization set up before European had any kind of standing in society, and I believe that original understanding, that original context of European history and understanding that they were sitting on the sidelines, like planning the conquering, planning the invasion, planning how they were going to infiltrate and trade as a civilization. I feel like that's why they're able to continuously keep us under wraps, is because from that initial plan of conquering, they haven't changed the mentality. Whereas we had to be like, oh snap, people are invading us, and then we're playing catch up, where they're playing strategy, and we need to get to the point of that we are like checkmating every move, so we can play strategy and not catch up of the missed dodges that we keep receiving. Yeah.
What was your
Yeah.
what was your try? I mean, Swab, what was your question?
What question was, how do we keep getting in this position?
Oh.
Well, the question was how are black people in 2020 repeating history?
Hmm. Wow, that's a great I analysis, analysis question. They these we're dealing with the people who have created what clinicians term as a super ego to hide and protect their low self-esteem. So I have to create this image that I'm better than everybody to cover up my fear of white annihilation. We know what it is. My fear, my feelings of inadequacy, my feelings of self-loathing, and just self-hate for oh man, just being unnatural, being white. Can you imagine being white and going out in the sun and seeing these black people basking in the sun, and they have to no, God's son that gives everything life can't have life on this planet without it, and it kills them. It's the only thing the sun kills is them, and they know they don't belong. Anyway, that's not the question. The question is, how do we continue? Because we continue to allow someone who is inferior to convince us that they are superior. And she points it out crystal clear. It's right. We read it already. We just read it. I highlighted it. Where we do not understand our history. We do not understand. I'm trying to find where it was, but our roots. She used the analogy of planting the root of the tree. Not it only goes back, to our 400 years of our slavery and does not cover all of the beautiful civilizations that we built for thousands of years. And because we don't know that, and we don't love that, and we don't respect that. And they, on the other hand, love their history that they've created, that they've fabricated with this thieving, murdering, lying queen that everybody loves. And so where's our queen? I lift up Queen Edea. I have Queen Edea. I have a bronze of Queen Edea in my dining room, and King Oba in my dining room. That's my king and queen. And so we continue to repeat this stuff because self-hate, in a nutshell, self-hate, and chasing after, like she said, now we've become, you look at some of these TV news commentators, Brian Gumbel and them, not, maybe they have their soul, but they are white people. They just have brown, they're just melanated, but through and through their psyche and their spirit and their soul is completely bleached. And until we teach self-love, we will continue placing material and power, even in the net, we'll kill up a whole block to maintain power in a 2-block radius, emulating this false power, this false narrative that's been painted for us. So we're emulating the white. We got to stop emulating the white man, and then we can, and we got to show love for each other, and really, really, really respect our history and who we are, or we're going to continue doing the same thing. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And so we're and nobody's continued the Malcolm X fight. And so that's what I'm here for. To bring. I emailed Barbara Lee last week, as a matter of fact, our congressperson, about what's happening in the hood. And I want some nothing is saying anything about it, about this. It's a mass murder in effect in Oakland right now. And nothing is being said about it. No political people, no news outlets, nothing. No Black Lives Matter, the local politicians, the NAACP, nothing is being said. God damn. Okay, I'm gonna shut up.
No, I want to answer the question. Well, I also want to respond to what Ben said. I think I just had a thought today. I was I don't know what I was doing. I was doing something earlier today, and I had a thought about mayors and like the mayor of like Chicago, like the mayor of the Bay Area, like these mayors, right? And I thought I started thinking about the mayors who like govern the sectors where Black people and brown people live in high capacity and high frequency. And I was thinking, is there like a game or like a strategy that they have to maintain where they need these communities of Black and brown people and other suffering and violent chaos to the point where they're like when these things are happening, it's supposed to happen. That's why there's no like outcry for it. Like, oh, Black people killing Black people, or it sounds like business per usual. I feel like in a white supremacist society, that is what has manifested. Because what you're telling me sounds horrible. You're saying that and two more women were murdered by their boyfriends, and now that's like three. And it's not on the news. Like, hey, in the span of a month and a few weeks, there's been several murders of like young people killing young people. And it's just to me, it's another example of genocide too. It's like this genocide is still a white by white design. Black people killing black people with guns is a white. That's a white magic trick. It's like it's what white people want black people to do, and black people are so mental-sided. And when I say mental-sided, I mean like they are not thinking for themselves. They're being programmed to do what they do. They're walking Frankenstein's monsters and monstrosities. But to answer Swallow's question, how do we keep getting in? How are the things that were happening back then still happening today? Well, I think escapism is a thing where people kind of want to escape it, and that's why you see a lot of mixed race couples. You see like black men thinking that they'll be more safer and happier with a white person. You see a black woman, black female, thinking that they'll be more happier with a white counterpart. And in actuality, that is the case because even Dr. Frances Cress Welsing brought it up that when you immerse yourself in whiteness, you are given rewards, and that can be said for black men, well, black males and black females. Um, but yeah, I mean, I see a lot of you know black people running away from the problem of racism and white supremacy. For example, I have a very, very close friend of mine, used to live in, South Central LA. He met a girl off of a video game, and now they're like living together in a European country. And to me, he's like, is he happy? I'm not sure. He spends 99% of his life playing video games. Is that the actions of a happy person? I don't think so. But it happens. Like we run away from society and we find ourselves in these tragic arrangements. And I do think that if a white person and a black person are in a relationship together, that means that white supremacy should have ended and has been replaced with a system of justice. So until that happens, all these relationships that I see are going to just be tragic arrangements, and unfortunate acts, you know. But I hope I answered the question. So as you want to respond, or you want to answer the question?
Yeah, I actually wanted to respond to what Ben said.
Yeah, I would like to answer it too.
Go ahead,
we got gas, Mary. Oh.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, Ben, it's actually a reiteration of what Trey had said. You had mentioned that it's genocide. This is what they want to see. They want to see black people killing black people. And so, of course, they're not going to rush to immediate attention to find a solution or bring it to news attention for more awareness, especially if it's black women being killed, because black women being killed is stopping maybe 10 children from coming onto this planet Earth that will continue to reproduce more ideas, more things, more creations. With black men, of course, they have the ability to impose reproduction, but black women will be carrying this, they'll be nurturing this, they can teach nations, just like this chapter informs us. And also, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing answers your question in itself, where she mentions there's something to be learned from our African past, and we must never forget those who did not learn from history. Their whole history are bound to repeat it. So that understanding that if we do not seek the knowledge, if we do not go back and fetch and apply this knowledge, so many people are happy being distracted. So many people are happy being sucked in their phones, and then 5 hours have gone by and they've done nothing towards the experience that they're complaining about or they're experiencing in life. And of course, you're going to repeat the same cycle because nothing has changed, or you haven't gained the knowledge needed to each generation. We think that the next step is, okay, so I'll learn technology, okay, I don't need to go to school, I'd have an apprenticeship. But we keep trying to understand success through the white man's eyes rather than understanding success through uh, gaining independence and understanding what true self-respect is, and learning to be our own sovereigns for ourselves. That's something we keep failing to do, and keep reaching out, looking for help, and versus trying our best to find out all the possible ways in which we can figure things out. We're gonna repeat it because for that same reason. But yeah, please go ahead, Swa.
Yeah, I would just to answer the question. Like, of course, the Access Papers answers it as well, but Black people's failure to understand history is why 2020 we are still slaves, still being terrorized, still being subjected to the system of racism, white supremacy. We have not developed self group or self respect, and that's evident in the ghetto glorification that we see going about, and the black males participating in killing the black females over and Ben's area of the world. So what happens is that the genocide and the subjugation continues forever, like Mary just said. So very unfortunate. I hope that um I'm sure a lot of black people will begin to get serious as like this problem gets ever more intensified. And it's really unfortunate. I was doing research, and it turns out that Dr.Frances Cress Welsing was actually working on the ISIS papers too before her passing. So that would have been a really great contribution to solving this problem, I believe. But that's all.
Let me chime in right quick before I forget. I know we got to continue on, but you know, 2 weeks before Malcolm X was assassinated, he was in Kenya, and he was doing that negotiating with some of the politicians there concerning joining the AI. What am I trying to say? Organization of African Unity. And 2 weeks after he left, not Kenya, and came home, he was assassinated. On the same day, and he was assassinated by Black Muslims hired by the CIA. Nothing's been proved. The case is reopened. But I just recently found something out. The person that he was in negotiations with, the person, I got to get the guy's name in Kenya, was popped on the same day as Malcolm X. So that's just to let you know. That's just to let you know, look, you may not be aware of how influential and how powerful, the Black Panther Party was declared the public enemy number one, the biggest threat to the state was the Black Panther Party. We didn't see ourselves like that. We have to see our power. We have to see the threat that we are. We have to understand and identify ourselves, and put it out there, and give the fear back to them. I grew up beating white boys up. I grew up as a Black supremacist. I grew up chasing white boys home. We weren't allowed. We didn't play that shit. We had a song, "Run, Charlie, run. The niggas are coming. The niggas are coming. Run, Charlie, run. The niggas are coming." And we need to get that back. I mean, like a massive campaign for us to acknowledge our power and the fear that everyone has, because we got targets on us. Just think, every nationality has been conditioned to hate us at worst and to feel superior to us at best. And then and we jump on the bandwagon with the rest of everybody else hating ourselves. So we're at the forefront. I appreciate what we're doing. You are at the forefront. We are the spearheads for this movement, this countering racism and white supremacy movement. This is a movement that you've started. And just because I haven't gotten anybody to our class doesn't mean I'm not. I mean, I have people out there that, you know, because after this, I talk all day about what we learned to all my friends and my people. And it's changing their behavior and their reactions with white people. They're not, I said, okay, no more smiling and laughing with white folk. You know, so I get my reports back at the end of the week, what of the experiences that they had. So it's good.
That's definitely an interesting practice.
That's the fun.
Yeah, so let's keep it moving. Is there anything that they had highlighted that they wanted to read and share with the group?
Just right quick, I don't want to take too much time.
Yeah, let's take all the time that you need. Just, you know, I would like everyone to get through their notes. I would like everyone to get through everything that they have on the table for today.
So we already read this part about being hopeless to moan, groan, cry, and attempt to escape through alcohol and drugs. Fantasy, you know, laughter and fun and games. And it's important to think about that, the fact that, okay, if we look at the paradigm of society as a pyramid, and the people at the bottom of the pyramid are mostly Black people, people of color, and they want to change the way they feel because nobody wants to feel down and depressed and in despair and hopeless and, you know, being discriminated against, you know, you know, everything that we've been talking about. And I think what white supremacy has figured out is that they are exploiting people's feelings, emotions. They know how it made them feel to be oppressed and to be suppressed and to be driven up into the snow. Intrinsically, maybe they don't know where that feeling came from, but it's about feeling. It's about how they feel. They want to do anything they can to feel better, right? And if it means tearing everybody else down, and that's the reason they tear everybody else down, is to feel better. So what do we do in the community to feel better? We use drugs, alcohol, sex to escape and avoid. And the very things that we're using as a solution for our condition is the very thing that's keeping us in the position that we're in at the bottom. And so the key to it is realize that it's a feeling that we're dealing with, and the true solution to dealing with that feeling is basic fundamental, better education, more spiritual understanding, more cultural and spiritual connection, and just like say understanding and skills and abilities and training and the desire for self-sufficiency. So that's what I almost highlighted though.
Ben, you muted yourself by mistake, I think.
Oh no, I was done.
Okay, awesome. But yeah, so the title of this chapter brings a lot of things to mind. Black women moving towards the 21st century. And keep in mind, this is written in 1975, I believe. And there, I think before we talk about, you know, Black women moving forward towards the 21st century, it's interesting to have historical context. And Dr.Frances Cress Welsing does an astronomically great job at providing historical context. And I want to read something off page 286. And it reads as, the first lessons to Black women were harsh and cruel ones of sexual assault and abuse, taking their children away and forcing them to watch their men being lynched and castrated. But then these harsh lessons were followed by milder treatment of Black women as compared to Black men. Black women were given extra food, money, clothing, other gifts for their special personal favors to the masters. They were rewarded for correctly teaching their children to conform to the master's wishes, as well as for telling their men to calm down and be patient, so that they too could be rewarded. Perhaps we Black women really became seduced by the illusion of power, being so close to white males. We have told ourselves that these behaviors were survival tactics and the only way that we could have come this far. But as our survival increasingly is becoming threatened, we are forced to wonder if we have been mistaken in our analysis and our strategy. But again, there is something to be learned from our African past, and we must never forget that those who do not learn from history, their whole story, are bound to repeat it. And still in context, and this is just the beginning. This is shortly after, Black people were, no longer physical slaves. It was going to be a new refinement of, it was going to be a new confinement of racism, white supremacy, or refinement. So we see the physical shackles coming off to a more, okay, only live here, and these scattered bits of North America. You can live here, and we're still gonna lynch you and castrate you and rape you and kill you, but you get to pretend like you're free. You get to run around and do things on your free will, to some context, to some extent, and I really want to go back to when she mentions Cleopatra and how Cleopatra too, fell victim to, trusting white men and believing that white allyship was possible. And I see that slave 0526 posted that reread that, and we read 284. So I think he may be mistaken. So the specific story to which I refer is that of the African Black Queen Cleopatra, born in 69 BC. Cleopatra came to the throne that she shared with her brother Ptolemy the Eighth. I believe X, Roman numeral X, I is 8. I apologize if it's not, but I believe it is 8. When she was 13 years old, Egypt was then a Roman protectorate. It was beset with internal strife and intrigue. Cleopatra aligned herself with Roman general Julius Caesar, whom she thought would reinforce her power and help her people. She saw her political and sexual relationship with Caesar as a maneuver to save Egypt from the worst aspects of Roman domination. This maneuver failed in spite of her second Roman lover, Mark Antony, who came after Caesar's death. Her suicide is a profound statement about the series of decisions that she made. Egypt fell and became a Roman colony, and all of that, and all of the harsher aspects of Roman rule, which Cleopatra has sought to prevent, settled over Egypt and the Middle East. There were other Black queens in Africa who fought the white invaders to their death. They did not submit or cooperate with their oppressors. Instead, they moved to resist and destroy the oppressive process. They urged their men to do likewise, thus leaving their marks as heroines and warriors for their people who died in honor. These Black women have not been known simply as beautiful queens who committed suicide in their own disgrace. So I wanted to finish this and end off with a question. And I'm going to ask the same question that Dr.Frances Cress asks us. This brings us to the pertinent question. Should we continue our alliance with the present Romans, or have we learned from the past, and should we choose an alternate course? I'll go by answering. So that was a lot that I read, but I just wanted to provide historical context that historically there has been a relationship between an impressive relationship between white men and black women, black females, and it's never been constructive to what I have discovered through my learning and my investigation of racism, white supremacy. And has only led to the dismantling of empires and the further destruction of African civilization. So my question to you is the same as she poses: like, should we continue our alliance with these people who are classified themselves as white? Is there any hope in a relationship with people who classify themselves as white? Feel free to answer at will. It's a hot topic whenever conversations about whites are.
Yeah, thank you so much for reading that extract. From the extract that you read answers the question in itself. Cleopatra lost. She didn't just lose. She wasn't just devastated and upset with her life outcome from aligning with Mark Antony and Caesar and all those Roman and the Roman Empire through marriage, but she lost heritage, kingdom, legacies. There's a plethora of information that we probably will never get to actually know, or was like ransacked and taken over the moment that the crossing, because that's what marriage was used for. With Europeans politically, when marrying royals, so they'll have possession over their land, possession over their space, possession over like some form of like some way to gain some access to order and the people and community. And that's what happened to Pocahontas. They thought by marrying Pocahontas they'll be able to get some kind of they believe they'll be able to get some kind of like control over that space of land, not realizing that Pocahontas was like the 13th daughter of the chief and had no bearing or power. So they then thought, okay, what can we do next? They brought her over here, tried to show that interracial marriages, like, more people should go over to the Americas because look at what's come from this relationship, like showing it off to all the royals, like to encourage them to send voyages over to America and further invade under the false pretense that look at the healthy relations we can have with this, with royalty. We can get married to royalty in this way. So it's always just been a bargaining plea and political move. You'd even find with the elites, marriage is very very strategic and a power move. And one thing that I would observe, okay, because the question that you asked is, should we continue this allegiance with the no, we shouldn't. We should learn. We should call them for who they are. I don't want to even call them worthy adversaries, because the game of worthy adversaries is like two rivals who are aware of themselves and compete with each other. Their one is more like a jealousy thing where we're constantly being projected this fearful energy, like are we evil? Are we bad? Sort of thing, but more so is power. And with rivalry, everybody's aware of their own potential, and there's a certain level of respect there. We're not able to gain respect because they keep hiding information from us. So no, we can't work with the second that we do stop working with the Roman allegiances, the second that we do stop working with the European mentality and mindset and stand full ground and establish ourselves as, this is how you have to talk to us, this is how you have to address us, this is our leader, once we establish that, then they'll have no choice but to respect us, and they'll have to get us free propaganda like how they do the Chinese. But until then, we can't even consider ourselves worldly adversaries, because we need to maintain our respect through doing exactly what they, not even doing exactly what they did, but doing our own version, but in a healthier way that shows that we're doing it different now. We can't, no more kumbaya. That's me answering the question.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, I would.
That was good. That was good. Go ahead.
Yeah, to answer the question, yeah, I would say that of course the victim should not align themselves with the abuser, which is what the system of racism is. It's a forced like allegiance to white people, because the system forces us to rely on them for our well-being. So no, we should not like trust them. We should be highly suspicious of white people because they are all capable of practicing racism. So I think the best approach for all Black people is to like, stop understanding like, Black people as like a group of people who has any power, and the best course of action is to, but any physical power outside of like the metaphysics, but they should understand that each Black person independently needs to become codified in countering this problem. Codified meaning no longer by speech, action, or thought supporting the system. That's my read Neely Fuller's The Code Book. Every Black person needs to own that book.
Love everything I'm hearing. Thanks for that question, Trey. I had to take notes listening to you guys. First of all, the queens, the Black women in that age were the spiritual leaders. They were the intercessories to God. It wasn't the man. It was the women. And the men in power in antiquity would never cross that line and disrespect the queen like that, because they know it's self-destruction. The queens were absolutely held in higher esteem even than the queen. And so she could not have, in my theory, Queen Cleopatra thought that she would have been given the same respect that other kings that she had afforded her. But she didn't realize she was dealing with a person, a people that don't have soul, that don't have spirit, which means they don't have morality. They don't have morality. So they were able to do things. It's almost like as if, Trey, if I were to say, okay, Trey, I'm leaving town, come and take my house. I want you to house sit for a week. Because I trust you. And then you come and I leave for a week and I come home and all my shit's gone when you get back. You clean me out, right? Right? Because it was just appalling. It's just unheard of. It's unthinkable that you would do something like that. And then and that's how the white man was able to do that, because of our, and see, the problem with the Bible and these spiritual teachings is that because of the white supremacy's inability to decipher the original writings, the hieroglyphs, the book of, the Egyptian language, which is very similar, a derivative or a dialect of the ancient Aramaic, which Jesus spoke, Hebrew, those ancient languages. And so because of their mindset and their culture and their inability to relate morally, it's impossible. It was impossible for them to translate the messages and the laws of God from the ancient hieroglyphs and the ancient writings of the original people who gave the law of life, the book of life. It started with the book of the dead and went to the book of life, and they took that and came up with this Bible. It's impossible for them to bring the laws of God into the Bible because they couldn't translate it. It's impossible for them to translate the idea of, for example, brotherly love, cooperation, just like in their everyday conditioning way of life. You come before I do. They couldn't translate that. They even changed the golden rule from do unto others. I mean, from this is the golden rule. This is the pure, ancient, original golden rule. It was where did I get it? Anyway, I'll find where I got it. That which I have done unto you, I have also done unto myself. They could not translate that. They could not translate that and give that to the world. They'd have to translate that so that they can maintain power and control over the masses. Those religions are for the purpose of maintaining power and control over the masses. They could not give you the real translation and maintain power and control. So they had to change it to some mere suggestion, you know, that do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's some bullshit. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I get. And so I've kind of got away from the original topic. But what was the original topic? I got what was the original question, Trey?
We're just talking about the historical context of trusting people who classify themselves as white. You know.
Oh yeah.
Us, you know.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm gonna get to that just very briefly. Pocahontas was kidnapped. It wasn't this romantic affair. She was actually kidnapped and forced and raped and forced into that situation. Which leads to what Swal brought to my attention, the fact that Black people in this country and really the world over, all people of color, Black people in particular, are in an abusive relationship. And we all know people who have been involved because of A, B, C, and D. Maybe the woman financially, she can't get away. Emotionally, she's experienced some kind of trauma in the past that causes her to stay. There's all kinds of clinical, psychological reasons why women stay in abusive relationships. You just can't get out of it. There's nowhere to go. There's just, and so Black people, and then Black people are likened to that woman, the proverbial abusive relationship. We can't get out. We can't get them to stop beating on us. We have to do what they tell us to do if we want to eat. We have to behave a certain way. And I think Trey was mentioned how we're in the illusion of the land of the free. But we are women Black people are women that are trapped in slavery, in an abusive situation. We're not free. If we were free, we'd be able to get on a plane and go wherever we want to go. We are not free. We're slaves, and we're subjected to the society and the structure that's put in place for us by our oppressors, by our colonizers. Okay, that's what I have to say about that.
Well said. Well said, Ben.
Can I say some? Can I say a few words before I go? Before I leave you guys?
Yeah, of course.
In and out. Yeah, before I leave you. Yeah. I've had a hectic day. Um. Anyway, first and foremost, let me say thank you to the host and all of you. It's an opportunity for.
The sound is really bad. I'm not sure if you can bring it closer to your mouth.
Can you bring the phone closer to your face?
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's best if it's closer. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's really no. It's pretty low. Can you? Oh, talk now.
Hello. I say thank you very much for having me. Thank you to the host and thanks for to Trace for bringing up this idea.
It was Swashon's idea. It was Tracian's brother in America.
Really okay. I thank him and thank you all of you and you too, my daughter, for inviting me to be part of this. Basically, about white supremacy, we tend to hate the white, right? The problem lies.
I don't think.
I'm coming. We're talking about white supremacy. Yes, they started it by slavery, going to Africa, training our ancestors, bringing them here. But the problem is us. It is us that we have to get out of this mental slavery. We have to get ourselves out of it. How will we? One, first of all, we need to create that awareness in ourselves, siblings, our children, that they need to know what is surrounding us. They need to know what has happened to our forefathers. They need to be aware of the present situation, the past, the present situation, and work towards the future. From the onset, from as little as young as we have them as toddler or whatever, young children, that then we start to sensitize them, let them get that awareness. And when they grow up with that in their mind, they will work towards, in fact, they will be determined more than me, maybe more than us. But when we have our children, we bring them up with love. The main concept, the main thing, we don't focus on it. We leave them, we leave them. The main thing is, to be honest, is awareness from our children. And as I said, sensitive, let them be aware of the past, what has happened, and the present situation, and the future. We all of us work together. How are we gonna do it? I'll just make a few suggestions here. After creating that awareness, the Africa, we need to focus, whoever, all over the world, focus, go back to Africa, empower our people. So that's like, I'm going through something. My daughter is aware. I believe she is too. When I have my nephews, my nieces, when they grow up, all they think about is America, or coming to the UK, or just coming out. They don't even know. They don't know what is happening. Why? Because of this lack of awareness. They don't know. what has happened to our forefathers, what is happening now, and what is going to happen in the future. And when they come, they still come, they still come and trap themselves like we are. I'm not trapped because I just a few years ago because I lost my husband, or else I backed out at that time to see my daughter, my mom, and go back, So they are out there fighting to come back here instead of trying to empower themselves there. We having the ones that are here in this developed country, and have the opportunity to go back to Africa to invest, as Gaddafi was trying to do. They eliminated him. Malcolm X was trying to bring the awareness. Some did, receive the message, and some now they're just playing it on the television, and it was eliminated. This is it. Spread the awareness, continue to spread out the awareness, and then go to Africa, empower Africa. As long as you are Black, you are against this white supremacy, then you don't even need to live within them. To be honest, let's go back to Africa and empower Africa. Africa is
That's what we're all working on.
I'm coming. It's filthy rich. Natural resources, they don't have it yet. They will dig like England. They will dig England from January to December for hundreds of years. They will never find diamond, gold, bauxite. We name them. They are all in Africa. But how? Even when they dig these diamonds, we don't even have the material. We don't have the machinery to even refine them, to polish them. We have to bring them back here to Europe. And when we do, you tell me, they will come and do a little bit of blessing, rub, clean it, and that's it. They give us chicken change and they take all the big side of it. So when we cannot get out of it, when we are not empowered, who will empower us? The white man will never ever empower us. They will never ever. They want us to remain as slaves. So let's work together collectively, go back to Africa, empower our people, create jobs, create, things, and then create the awareness, create jobs, and then maybe some will follow. But if we keep talking about it, we'll talk about it until we die, like Malcolm X, Gaddafi, you name them, all of them. Martin Luther King, all these other Black activists, and they use the Blacks to kill them. Because it's not all of them have it here. Some of them are still they don't get it. Because if I, a brother or like Trace son or the brother there is trying to create awareness, is fighting for us. Who am I, a white man, to kill my fellow? When I know that the fight he's doing is for me, it's for it's for children yet unborn, to save us, to save our unborn children and grandchildren, to save them from this slavery. We're in it completely. We're in it. Some years ago, I had to pack. Is aware. There, gets back from the streets, off the streets. For about 20-something years now, I've been engaged on that, empowering them, getting them out of the streets. Those who cannot afford to go to university, who cannot pay, yes, and take them in our institution, give them free scholarships. Up till now, it's still existing. We established that. I bought the computers there, everything, get the lecturers, work together with my late husband, empower these youth, find jobs for them so that they can even stop talking about Europe or coming to America or coming to England. we did that for over 20-something years. I've been engaged on that. I have, but if like I'm running the establishment now, singularly, my husband is dead, and then I don't have no other funds. So basically, and I have to pay the lecturers. I have to come back. Now look at me working. Just as I complained, I went to work, dealing with 5 service users with mental something disability, learning disabilities. I'm exhausted since yesterday up and down, and it's not just one floor, it's up and down. Why? Just to get few cash to continue to sustain, to empower the youth over there and the family. So how can we get out of it when just few of us have the idea and even working to it, working to solve the problem? We cannot talk about it. It's not. This is not time to talk. It's time now for action. Malcolm X, they've talked. Martin Luther King, they've talked. Gaddafi, you name them. This is not time to talk. Most of this Zoom, I don't go. I have my nephew, my daughter is aware, Ibrahim Jani. Every day he would send me Zoom something over the week. I said, look at me, I'm working. Because I know what I'm talking about. This is not time to talk. It's not talking again. Because when you talk, the white man, if you don't take your time, the white man will go and pay another fellow black to come and kill you. Let's act. Let's act. If we are sitting down, let's stand up. If we are let's run. We have to put things into action now. It's not time to talk, to be honest. So that's my take. And I hope and pray that all of us will start from now to work towards it, to find a solution to this, and create the awareness to the others so that we can all work together, come together, in solidarity to go and save Africa and save the present situation. But nothing is not working, to be honest. We'll talk about it forever and write billions of books. Some people don't even have time to read. It's not time. This is not time to be talking. It's not time. Let's work towards it.
Thank you, Mom.
I'm leaving you because I'm exhausted. I'm coming to sleep, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's very powerful. Thank you so much, Mom, for sharing your passionate take on your, not only your experience, but what you feel like we need to do. I've definitely taken on board a lot of the things that you're saying. You're right. A lot of people who talked before were killed, but I would say for one thing that I'm really, because this is our final chapter of this book, one thing I'm really grateful for this information in particular is not just reading for us, is really allowed us to know what actions work this time versus the actions before that were been failed and tested before. If we know who we're dealing with, we know how many steps to take or how many not steps to take. So this information for us is necessary. I'm really happy that you also shared like what you were doing with the computer school to free young minds and equip them with education and knowledge to be able to free themselves. And now you're saying you're back over here working so you can fund that. That's the way that you have done, what you put steps for when we do go back home, where we'll be able to give lectures from this information that we're learning. We'll be able to continue spreading that knowledge. If it's already established, we'll be able to further make use of these facilities with more innovative programs that with this new information that we have, that will arm them in a more stronger, more fortified way. Each time we're gonna keep doing it better. But yeah, thank you so much. That's what I have to say, Mom. I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much. And thank you. As I said, yeah, it's not time.
We're going back.
It's time for more risk our lives. Also, so thank you. I leave you now. Thank you, guys.
We're
That's
going
my-
back.
Mom, wait
God bless you.
for everybody's response.
Getting ready. We're going back to Africa. Going back.
Welcome. Yeah, welcome. We are happy. We'll be very happy to host you. You know. Yeah. Very happy.
That's the solution
I'm
for
looking
us to
forward
get
to that.
together and go back and join with our families.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Asata. I just like to say that from history and evidence shown that in order to solve any problem, you must first understand the problem. So there's no way to go out and like when you say go out and do something about it, this is one of like the most constructive things a person can do is begin to understand the problem and what it has done to a people. So yeah, that's just my response. The Trey still.
Trey's not in the room.
Okay, guys.
Thank you for joining. Marcus Garvey had the Black Star Line. We had ships sailing back, reestablishing commerce, reestablishing our culture. It got infiltrated and destroyed. Now they can't get us. Now is the time for us, like you said, the talking is over. The most important thing, and I think the reason that the Jews and the white folks have all the power is because they're able to keep a secret. Keep a secret. And I think that's remind me that's what it is. Started talking about keep your strategy. Yeah, just like Miriam said, they strategize way ahead of the game. Their strategy is secret. You don't go broadcasting your strategy. You don't broadcast your military strategy. You keep it a secret. You have meetings, and and I think that's the problem with black people. We can't keep anything secret. We have to leak. We have to leak everything to our white master. Now, that's a ain't gonna like this.
Thank you.
Neely Fuller says that if you tell one black person it's not a secret anymore because black people don't know how to keep secrets. So, yeah.
Our downfall. Every time we had a slave insurrection, every time we had a mass escape set up, every time that's why John Brown didn't watch the Good Lord Bird on Showtime. It's about Frederick Douglass and John Brown building up to raid on Harper's Ferry where they were trying to get the arms and they couldn't keep it a secret. Too many Sam Jacksons in Django.
But yeah, I'm sorry, Asada said a lot. I agree with I agree that there needs to be some type of investigation amongst black people going to Africa for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I would love to get back on track. I feel like we need to be recalling from the book a bit more.
Okay, Mom, good night. Thank you for coming.
So yeah, I want to bring some context to the context of racism, white supremacy, and how it has put black women in a position where their counterpart are experiencing a lot of negative effects while they're also experiencing a lot of effects as black females. And I'm gonna reread to do this. I'm gonna be reading from page 287. In the context of all that we may want to call progress and material prosperity, we must face the reality that today, Black men die younger than white men, white women, and Black women. Black men are the most frequent victims of homicide, and they're being killed by one another in an increasing numbers. The suicide rate for young Black men is only Black suicide rate greater than the rates of whites. Black women and Black children are the most frequent victims of rape and other physical assault violence. Black infant mortality remains 2 to 3 times the figure for whites. Black women are more often left alone to care for their children than any other female group in the country. Nearly one-third of our so-called Black family units, which I refer to as survival units, are single-parent families. In Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, there are over 60,000 Black male children growing up in homes without fathers or other surrogate father figures. We continue to have the highest rates of separation and divorce and thus family dissolution. We continue to have some sort of the highest rates of teenage parenthood and thus immature and inadequate parenting of the next generation. We continue to have high levels of juvenile delinquency, gang wars, and drug addiction. Young Black people continue to leave school in record numbers prior to high school graduation. There is a virtual epidemic of low reading and math scores among our young people. And as a result, these youngsters are leaving school with totally inadequate preparation for this highly technological, computerized, and industrialized social system. So things are not looking good for Black men or Black males or Black females in the context of racism, white supremacy. And when I was reading this, it made me think of it's pretty unfortunate how I know people who fit into all of these categories. I know teen parents right now in this very moment in time. I know um, men who have been incarcerated wrongly and justly. I don't even know what justly means. I don't think a Black person can be incarcerated justly in a system while the system of racism, white supremacy is active. Um, so, what is this? How does reading these statistics? How does it make you feel? And like, what are some things that um, we as Black people, or not we as Black people, you yourself can do to not become a statistic? I think speaking independently is using I statements is important.
Yeah. Follow the logic. Minimize contact. You minimize conflict.
Can I ask a quick question? How come we can't see you two? Why aren't you on camera?
Um, I'm in my room and
Well,
I'm just not in a comfortable position, so I look awkward because I'm not comfortable. Um,
Feeling so isolated.
yeah, I'm on my computer that doesn't have a camera.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
uh,
Oh, okay.
It's
Were you done? Were you done, Swa?
Yeah, I was done answering the question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mary. Were you gonna go?
perfect. Yeah. Um, to answer the question, I would say is what we're doing now, arming ourselves with the knowledge that we need to be strategic, aligning myself with not only the information but with the like-minded people, not wasting my time having non-constructive conversations. In the time that I'm not communicating with people, asking myself the right questions, answering the right questions, building schedules, understanding what we need now, understanding what I need to fulfill my goals. There's something that we read. What passage was it? In Urugu, the book that we do on Fridays, there was something about Miriam, about Annie. Somebody had written in the extract as one of the white anthropologists or philosophers that were allowed to create derogatory scientific knowledge on us, so they could find more moral ways of so they could be morally cleansed in their decision making to maintain us as slaves. The statement that he wrote is that it was a South African president in 1985, and he wrote how we as black devils, we do not plan past a year of our lives. And that is, for me to read somebody who is wrong on every single level, but still have a level of truth where I haven't planned past a year, made me feel like I need to have all of these things in check, so I'll never be read by anybody purposeful, like using things in place to further I just can't let them be right about anything from now on. And in understanding that, I now want to plan. I want to have my 5-year plan. So taking on board everything that if you see a problem, rather than moaning or complaining about it, like Dr.Frances Cress Welsing said, find a way to create great creativity or an action, or put something in place beyond code.
So how I answer the question is for myself. I haven't fully read the code book just quite yet, and but I do like from what I have read. I do think I applied immediately, like what Walt said earlier. I minimize conflict, and I'm honest. You know, if I say something, I try my best to mean it. I like to be straightforward and as blunt as possible. I like to know where I'm going, how long it's going to take to get there, how long it's going to take to get back, who's going to be there. I don't really like being out and about much, because I know like the longer I'm out, the more dangerous it becomes for me, because my skin is like the target basically. It's not me and my ideas. My first target on me is my skin color, and then maybe my hair, and then what I represent, and then my ideology. But in this system, black is the target. And because I'm aware of that, I try to maneuver life in a way that I am not, as visible as out and about as possible, I guess. That's not saying I'm not like enjoying my life or anything like that. I'm just not really too fond of hanging around, hanging around. But yeah, does anyone else have anything to say? If not, we're gonna keep moving on. Any response to that?
Just right quick, fathers. Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, there are over 60,000 black male children growing up in homes without fathers or surrogate father figures. And that goes back to, I'm just going to keep repeating the same thing over and over. Our history, our relationship, the history of relationship between the king and the queen, the black king and the black queen, and their roles and responsibilities. And so that's my objective, is to re-examine the roles and responsibilities of black women and black men, our relationships, and not have them modeled and structured after white relationships. It never works it'll never work that way. And continuing to just re-emphasize and overemphasize black love, black hair, black skin, melanin, just keep reminding the kids that you're a millionaire. That's the reason you're being attacked, is because you have something more valuable than gold, platinum. You don't need all those gold teeth and dripping diamonds off your neck. You have melanin. That's why they portray and paint this materialistic thing as so important. Because they can't have the real gold, the real money, which is the melanin. Um, so yeah, that's what I have for that right there. Yeah, that's what I had. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I totally agree. There's a lot in this chapter, and I think a lot in this chapter can be applied to black males as well. But I think Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was taking the liberties to speak to her to the category of a species she belonged to, which was black females. Um, does anyone have anything that they had noted down in chapter 24?
Yeah, I would like to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on page 288, there's something I want to read, but let me just, read more. I just wanted to, I'm going to ask a question after I read this short extract where she talks about Black women being the first teachers. What must we as Black women do? Is it my conviction that the African proverb, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the nation and its destiny, is true? Black women are the mothers and thus the first teachers of Black females and Black males alike. So in understanding that, it's like I said, it's just going to be a short extract. In understanding that statement, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the nation and its destiny. I wanna understand as everybody here, as more participants of, like, I understand that I grew up and I didn't have like my mother as my main source of like valid, as a main point of contact for like guidance. She was like she said, back and forth with her husband, but my main primary caregiver was my grandmother. And what I came to understand by my grandma's mentality was she was an amazing, strong woman, and she was the man of the house. But when a man did come into the house, there was a certain level of submissiveness that I saw, like, as definitely a babying, but so it's babying, but giving them the power at the same time. So giving power without it being earned, if that made sense. Like, my nan always assumed that the male coming home was coming from work and he needed food right away and I must go get it. And that I wouldn't call that babying, because you need to be nurtured in a Black male home, but I didn't see the work on my uncle's behalf. So on the male's behalf, I literally saw the work on the female's behalf. So for, in your homes, I want to ask, do you believe that it was more of a babying, do you know people who got more of a babying energy from their mother versus you have to work in this life? And how do you say that would have affected you? Because how would you say that? How would you say what version do you have, and how do you say that that's helped you in terms of how did it rock your cradle and the way that you operate now as an adult?
I'll chime in. So, early childhood trauma stifles maturity. So, and that's not really the question you asked. But when you're dealing with any two adults in a couple in a relationship that have experienced early childhood trauma, that didn't experience a healthy separation from mother, that didn't get the love and attachment, because it's one, you know, when a woman is pregnant with a child, that's one system, that's one ecosystem. And then when the child is born, and you know what connects the mother and the child is the umbilical cord, right? So when that's cut, you still you have two systems, but the baby can't survive without the mother. So there's still one system, right? And then once it separates, gradually separates, now it's an independent system, but it's not going to be able to function and operate without the nurturing that it received from the mother. So now you're dealing with an adult that never received what it needed as a child, and it's constantly demanding. And that's what happened in my household, you know, because of my pop's trauma. And you can imagine a Black man like that growing up in the 20s, very very psychologically traumatized. And so that's why I was able to really experience that super ego accompanied by low self-esteem. I feel less than, so you have to cater to me. You have to do everything for me. Everything has to be done to support and to build and to encourage my super ego. And if you don't continue to boost and feed my ego, you're the enemy, and you must be dispatched as such. And you know, I think what, you know, that's white male supremacy. Male chauvinism is not a Eastern, it's not an African concept. That came from white male supremacy. And in order to break that cycle, shit, what do we do? What the first step in breaking that cycle is the nurturing process of our babies. Make sure, you know, in Kisumu, Kenya, well, all over Africa and China, but I noticed more so in Kisumu and other parts of Africa, in Kenya, the women all use papoose. You know what I mean? You know, the papoose, the backpack for the baby. And they just carry the baby around with them at all times. No stroller, no, you know, they're connected. And those babies that grow up that had that experience, the Chinese, and I know the Luos and the other, they're the doctors and the lawyers in the world. They're the ones that really adjust and develop in a healthy fashion. There's a saying, and I'm gonna stop with this. There's a saying in the Black community that Black women they love their boys and raise the girls. So the girls are given the responsibility and told to study and work hard and be disciplined, and the boys are spoiled. And so now we're seeing, we're seeing the outcome of that, the results of that. It all starts at a very early age. We got to catch them young.
That's a good observation. I just wanted to make a comment about the papoose thing that you had stated. That is true. I grew up seeing my cousins on this cheek squashed on the back. You can hear the heartbeat. There's a true connection there. It's beautiful. But then I noticed from like just observing all around in London, when European people like carry their children, I've literally seen them hold, like I've literally saw a little girl being held by like her jacket collar. So like her restraint to know whether to stop is how much it presses on her neck. And and for me, that you're teaching them detachment early. You're teaching them to be ruthless early. You're teaching them that version of love extremely early, and that was very scary. That was, yeah, that's like how you train somebody to be a killer. Like also there was the same situation. It was it was supposed to be a child on the back, but instead it was, I believe it was a tray. You was with me. Was it like luggage in between, and then the child was elevated at the top, so that, and it was on his father, so there was actually no connection between, no physical connection between the child and the father. It's just that there was something in between. So it was almost like the child was floating in. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a sign of detachment for me as well, and that also showed me that maybe young European children are gonna from earlier to crave that connection, to crave that there's a void that needs to be filled there, and it's usually filled with a misdirected hate and pointed at the wrong person usually, and usually that's us.
And that's why it's so important for them to separate us from our parents as much and as often as possible. They won't even, you can't even get welfare. You can't even get social support if your man is in the house. There's a diabolical strategy system set up to separate Black families. We should be so outraged for that.
Yeah. I want to go on to read on the bottom of 288, where Dr. Frances Cress Welsing mentions, it's a continuation, just a little bit further in. Black women as mothers and first teachers can take their consciousnesses to an even higher level. They can give the first lesson in what constitutes a Black manhood. They can teach all of their sons that they are not their babies or their substitute lovers. Black women can be the first to inform their sons with loving kindness that they did not bring them into the world to be oppressed. Rather, they brought them into the world to be free men, warriors who have to be war, who have to war to be free, and to die if so they happen to die in the fight for their right to be full men under the stars. Black women must cease saying to child psychiatrists, "I will never tell my baby anything like that." The being understanding your positioning from early, I understand the vitality of the vitalness of that only now as I'm learning more about white supremacy at my later age. The more constructive time I would have had, the choices of courses I would have done, it would have differed. The value that I put in so much in certain academic pursuits wouldn't have been my wouldn't have went down that path. The quarter life crisis that I experienced after trying to pray that I would get a job in the white industry as an assistant psychologist, like I wouldn't have stressed myself thinking, oh, why am I not enough, knowing that they'll never, of course, with determination, I would get there, but it was never going to be easy for me to put myself in a place of psychological authority and autonomy. They would never put that into my hands so easily. There's going to be too many loopholes. But in understanding that now, I would have been more strategic about subject choices and how to focus my energy. But so teaching the children early is highly important. She goes on to talk about not even sleeping with our partners until their behaviors are adjusted to what is constructive, and then rewarding, using sex pleasure, rewarding that intimacy with doing the right behaviors. I was saying before, like there's no problem with serving a man food, but but if you're just going with the expectations or what's that mentality? The assumptions that he's coming from a hard day's work, unless you're like inquisitive about that, compassionate about that, caring about that, encouraging more efficient ways for men or ourselves to basically operate and work, then we're not doing our part as women. And we should definitely not complain about the behavior that that we are seeing if we don't speak up and we just let it slide for the sake of kindness, love. At the end of the day, we'll be hurting ourselves. Like that statement that you said that should have originally been in the Bible, by not even sharing what needs to be said or withholding what better judgment that we know, we are doing ourselves in the long run because we are the ones suffering from the experience.
Right, I think you said was super spot on, and you reminded me of something that really would go well with that statement, which was from 289, and it says, "Black women as mothers and teachers consciously can teach their daughters that Black women, as the mothers of all mankind, are the Alpha and the Omega of women on this planet. They were here in the beginning, and if humankind remains, they will be present in the end. Black mothers can teach their daughters that they should never seek to look like or be like anything other than themselves. They can set the standards of what women will be like on this planet. For this is their responsibility. Coming from the tradition of the first mothers and queens, Black women can teach their daughters that respect is not given to women by men, but that Black women carry in themselves the highest possible level of self-respect that that commands respect from men and women of all races. Black women can teach their daughters how they possibly assist in the destruction of Black men and Black people by allowing Black men to hide out in the vagina. To allow this hiding out attempts to allow this hiding out when they know the men should turn and face their oppressors in an extreme level of self-destruction. Likewise, Black women can teach their daughters never to refer to Black men as baby and never to allow Black men to refer to them when adult women as mama. Thus they systematically can refuse to reinforce the image of the white man once reinforced, an adult Black male baby, and thus the proverbial motherfucker. It is clear that a baby will never track down the man. Finally, Black women can teach their daughters that they can change the tide of Black destiny by only giving their most intimate pleasures to the providers who also prove themselves as warriors against all enemies of the Black collective. See, that's why it's really great to have like people share their personal experiences because it always ties in to the book because this book is it's just a book about reality and truth. This is a book of decoding, a book of statistical analysis and data research. So this chapter has a lot of great information. And can someone volunteer and read the rules from page 290? I don't have the page on me, but I know that page has like it has like the rules for Black women that not I can rules but things that consider Black women to do.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Yeah.
It says these lessons will not be practiced until we Black women reach a new level of respect for ourselves. We must struggle as an individual to build this essential new Black self-respect through the following exercises. 1, we must stop gossiping about one another. 2, we must stop name calling one another. 3, we must stop squabbling with one another. 4, we must stop competing and comparing ourselves with one another. 5, we must stop making babies of our sons and lovers and then calling them incompetent behind their backs. 6, and instead of looking into the mirror each morning, asking, mirror, mirror on the wall, am I the fairest one of all? We should begin to ask, mirror, mirror on the wall, am I fooling my Black self at all? I want to read this next paragraph as well. We do not have many choices remaining. This time is short. and the crisis situation, though not of our own making, it is upon us. Will we continue to be the cooperating Cleopatras, or will we be fighting, struggling warrior queens? Racism now, as Cleopatra's time, is war against Black people, against the Black family, against the Black man, against the Black woman, and against Black children throughout the world. There is no war in history that has gone away with with a wish or prayer. Wars must be fought with the willpower, knowledge, and courage and determination of people. Really important passages from Dr. Frances Cress Welsing.
Yep, thank you for reading that. And that was my last note. If anyone doesn't, if people don't have stuff to share, we can move on to closing comments, and then you can jump into 25. But how's that sound? Does anyone have things they want to share?
I just wanted to comment on what Mary was saying about if Black women would totally ignore any Black man whose pants are sagging, those pants would come up overnight. And I use that as an example for all of the rest of our behavior. And she mentioned it, if we must stop rewarding these boys for their behavior. And there is no greater reward on this planet. I heard a preacher one time say the closest thing you're going to find to heaven on earth is the way a woman can make you feel. And he was not lying. I mean, it's so mind-boggling to think for them to have been able to convince us of white male power, white males, like, or any male power, anywhere. That's why they had to completely eliminate the woman from the equation, because they're the ones with the power. No man, no natural man can overpower the power, and no woman could ever understand this. And because you can't understand this, you cannot you can maybe be able to intellectualize it, but you can't understand the degree of power of that thing. It's more powerful than any bomb, any, I heard this comedian say that he was able to go, and I would stop with this, he was able to go up into an F-16 jet and ride with one of the fighter jets, and the inertia and the fuselage and the adrenaline, the feeling you get from that power and that speed, and he's going on, and he said it's just overwhelming. But there's one thing, he said, there's one thing more powerful than that jet. Pussy. Right. So they have actually convinced us that something that the man can do or say or have is more powerful than that thing that we all came out of and have all been, look, all the men, and have been trying to get back in, like she said. We've been trying to get back, climb back in. How did she say it? We've been trying to climb back into the womb to be babies or fetuses again, when they know the men should turn and face their oppressors in the extreme level of self-destruction. All we want is to go hide out. So yeah, I guess we do not acknowledge the power of our women. And once we do that and hold them up, push them up, push them up on the throne, put them not, so-called beside you or behind you, but really, if you look at those crowns of the ancient Egyptian queens, and when you have the queen and the king, I have an image sitting on the throne side by side. The queen's crown sat slightly higher than the king's. They were held in higher esteem, slightly higher esteem. It wasn't this big, I I'm all powerful and you're a slave. No, they were equal. But the woman had slightly higher, more self-esteem. I mean, was held in higher esteem. She made the final decision. And what's as important is that property was passed through her, not the man. We got to put the queen back on the throne, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Thanks so much, Ben, for sharing that. So my closing comment, I'm going to move to closing comments. My closing comments is that I agree with what a lot has been said. I think we just need to be honest with ourselves and what's the reality. The reality is that there's a power equation on white over non-white, and until that is no longer the case, Black people need to be totally serious about being aware of white supremacy, speaking about white supremacy, becoming codified. How are you feeling? I'm feeling as good as I can feel under the context of white supremacy. What are you up to? I'm trying to do this, but white supremacy keeps stopping me. Let's just be honest about what's happening. We can't. How you doing? I'm doing fine. No, everyone is doing fine. Everyone is astronomically not doing fine for multitudes of reasons, and white supremacy is one of them. So yeah, feel free to chime in with your closing comments.
For my closing comments, one, everything that's been said here today has been highly constructive. So thank you guys for just bringing that to the forefront. The Black women do need to be put back on top, but in order to wear the crown as high as it is placed, they're gonna need to know thyself. Get out. A lot of the things that Dr.Frances Cress Welsing says, it needs to be like the new Bible. It needs to be understood amongst women everywhere. Competing with each other. That's the biggest thing that they've been able to do through objectification. It's like we as women, Black women in particular, compete with ourselves for attention, colorism, power, ego, in the worst of ways, when the whole world outside of our race is competing with us. We need to hold unified hands and have our backs supported against each other, looking outward versus looking at each other. And we possess so much power and energy, and that energy, like when you pull the veil down to be able to like hurt somebody or love somebody, like you're saying, Ben, we're able to, how is it that these kids are able to kill themselves so easily, so desensitized? I remember living in this home with my sister, and we're stressed out about life, about work, about the experiencing all kinds of racism, experiencing oppression, but not knowing exactly how to call it. But we're at home together struggling, and the littlest thing that we do to each other, we can become so spiteful to each other, sending each other negative energy and sending negative energy. I remember becoming sick, feeling ill, feeling uncomfortable after an argument, or feeling really unhealthy after an argument. And it's like observing it. Imagine if we directed and sent that energy collectively together towards the people oppressing us. Imagine if we helped each other get out of those problems together. Like, oh, I sit here and help you write this email against racism. Should we fight this in the case? Should we show them that we know our rights and policy? Rather than doing that way, we passive aggressively microaggress each other into poor health. And that's the power that's the power we can possess, that to hurt each other, because we look at each other as the competition versus turning it together as one and looking outward to solve the problem together. So that's one thing I'll definitely say this chapter encompasses for us, to work together. I would speak Black men and Black women, but first of all, Black women together. In that way, we'll be comfortable with encouraging each of us to wear our crown without any fear of inadequacy or fear of why not me or why it's the other. And the statement that she makes at the beginning, let me just get in my notes, I didn't write a note of it. The statement that she makes in the beginning about a time of crisis is decision time. We're constantly going through whatever the European nations have in store for us as a crisis. And right now, our crisis is COVID. They're talking about vaccinations. They're talking about our steps forward. Like ultimately, we want to make enough money to fund our resources so we live healthily, can fund the projects that we want to get done, that fulfill our dreams, fulfill that we are bringing up with, that need to see in us for our children to live, not even just, and making the decision and the construct of and making the decisions, make clear what our decisions are so we know to take and put it in the statement. We need to stand and complain, but apply action and apply action solutions. So we need to seeking solid. This thing when time of crisis and in time of crisis, when it's time for decisions to be made, we pacify ourselves, vilify ourselves, fantasies. But Twitter, social media, we seek solace in one person, an angry post, or we seek solace in one person make a move, and then by that, and we not really so we celebrate, glorify too much, and then people.
Okay, we lost you.
Mary, you lagged out.
I'll get my closing comments while Mary sorts that out. Yeah, really, really important chapter. I wish every Black person could read this information. And yeah, everything that's been said, like there's really nothing I can even add to the closing comments, because everything that's been said has been well said enough.
Okay, you back, Mary? What were you finishing what you were saying?
Yeah, I was saying that we need to stop relying on social medias and Black Twitter as a way of solace at times of crisis, and we need to keep on with our individual work rather than just like, oh, we have somebody who's going to save us now. Obama's here, he could do all. No, we have to stay in our individual roles, making, as well as through group activity, but making sure we're doing what we all need to do individually, because too much attention on one person brings death, clearly. So we need to space it out and stop relying on these quick fads of like somebody gets mad at a white person and the white person cries, and then we glorify that, and then it's on TikTok and it's everywhere. It's false. It's a false sense of it's a false celebration. It's a false sense of change. That's the little entertainments that we have on the side. We need to stay focused on our decisions and path, and not let these little fads pacify and nullify us to the true core mission that we're on. Yeah. That's my closing comments for this chapter.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, everyone.